Kiske, as we come to a benediction on this service, I want to tell you the story about how important the memorial of communion was to the early church. Somewhere in the mid-200s, probably around 255 AD, after Jesus' death, a man named Tarsicius, a young man, probably 12 or 13 years old, was part of the church in Rome during the worst persecution of the early church. The emperor was named Valerian, and he was the one that was really into burning Christians when he'd find them as torches on the streets. He was the one that supported, more than any other, the idea of throwing the Christians to the lions in the Colosseum or watching them fight each other in a gladiatorial competition. And I already mentioned before that the church, so afraid of Roman persecution, they dug tunnels. You can go see them today under the city of Rome. We call them the catacombs, these underground tunnels where they would often meet. And then they would have large rooms under there that they would call crypts, where they could take communion together. And one of those Sundays, they're taking communion in a crypt under the city of Rome. Tarsicius, this young boy, is a part of that congregation. And they get word from some of the bishops who've been caught and arrested and are awaiting execution in the Colosseum. And they say, is there any way that somebody could bring us and serve us communion? We know we don't have to, but it would give us great courage to face the lions if somebody could do that. That kid, Tarsicius, stands up in the congregation. He says, send me. And they're all like, no, you're way too young. We can't do that. He goes, no, that's the point. The Romans won't suspect me. I will take the communion elements and I'll tie them to my chest underneath my tunic so that no one knows, and I'll sneak my way and get the communion elements to those bishops and leaders who are awaiting execution. Well, on his way there, some boys who knew him saw him, and they said, you need to come. We need one more person to finish this game. Come play with us. And he was just adamant. No, I can't. I got something else I need to do. And, of course, it made them curious, and they kept saying, why? What do you got to do? Come over here. And then they go, well, you got something under your tunic? What are you doing? What do you have there? And the more he protested, the more they tried to tear open his tunic to see what he had. And what they saw was these elements of communion. They didn't know what they were, and he was gripping them with everything he had. They began trying to pry his hands off, and he wouldn't let go, and so they began getting violent with him. They began beating him and throwing rocks at him. And then, in fact, a full-grown man came by and said, what's going on here? Break this up. And they said, no, he's a Christian. He's one of them, and he's hiding these mysterious things under here. And so the man began to beat him with a stick, brutally beat him. But he didn't let go of the elements until a Roman soldier came along and broke it up and said, what are you doing? All of you against this one little boy? What are you doing? Get out of here. So he tries to save the boy, but Tarsicius ends up dying in his arms. Nothing can be done for him. But before he dies, he gives that Roman soldier, whom he recognizes as one of the secret underground believers in that congregation, he gives him those communion elements. And the early church celebrates Tarsicius as one of the early church's greatest martyrs. That Roman guard was able to sneak in under his authority those communion elements and serve those leaders before they went to the lions. Memorials are important. That's why Jesus instituted. That's why God commands it all throughout the Old Testament. That's why Joshua, here in this text says, find 12 stones, pile them up so that you'll remember. When your children ask, you can tell them, God parted the Jordan River and we walked across on dry land into the promised land. May God help you remember who he is and what he's done.